one of these rising signs, each one of these signs that are rising have it's not just the sign, it's this place measured in relation to every other place. And you can even see, like, because we're talking about the Taurus, like every planet, I said this yesterday, like every planet winds up affirming these attributes that we say about Taurus. Every one based on what it rules. Even like we're talking about Mars. Mars rules the 7th and the 12th house. 12th house is actually of loss or letting go or of not being personally empowered so much. So Taurus in general winds up with Scorpio type partners, powerful partners, where they willingly kind of let go of power. Taurus often just literally does that. And you can see because Mars, the 7th house ruler, is powerful, and it also rules the 12th house of letting go. You understand? This is why I even said, we're in the 7th house, we have to often claim a certain power back from that area of life. So that if someone had that Taurus, the Scorpio person, they'd probably be pretty happy with it. They'd probably be like, yeah, dominate me. Fine. For a while. And then, of course, they'll also feel the suffering of that. Like I said before, every one of these signs has a very strong power that it does, and it also has the suffering that goes along with it. You'll hear the Taurus moan and moan and moan about how their partners don't respect them. That's the big lament. Right, because they're predisposed to like not stick up for themselves. But then they feel bad because they're not sticking up for themselves. You understand what I'm saying? We create it. It's our thing we're doing. And that's often regardless of where the planets are. Like I said, it's like a deep sort of profile that you get. Right? And again, Taurus is the expert at teaching people not to fight with their partner and just to be able to get along. They're built to do it. But again, they can do it just because they're afraid of change, not because they're so enlightened to do it. They can be enlightened, but they can also just be afraid of rocking the boat because they want stability more than anything else. They don't know how to ask for their desires so much because the moon rules the 3rd house, for example. You see, it's a whole profile. It winds up being focusing back on this like thing that goes on. Does that make sense? Yeah. You can see where the 1st house ruler also rules the 6th house. Anyone know what the 6th house is?
Hard work,
service,
everyday work,
effort. Again, Taurus is great at just putting forth effort, working, and good at it, and like it. They don't mind. They don't mind putting in the work. They're great at the hard work that it takes, and many times it's the hard work that it takes to get along with people and relationships, because we turn people into enemies often if we don't want to do the work. We'll turn them into enemies. But again, it's also the house of illness, sickness, not taking care of ourselves, taking care of other people so much, and then getting sick, and then resentful, and getting aggravated. And it also shows where Taurus can be their own worst enemy. The 6th house is enemies. It rules the 1st house of enemies. 1st house of themselves, 6th house of enemies. So they can be their own worst enemies. And sometimes it's also through Venus things, because it's Venus, like what? Indulgence.
Yeah.
6th house when we're not willing to be of service. And that also means service to our health, which means the sacrifice and the hard work to not indulge, for example. Then we can create a health problem. That's why 6th house is health problems. You understand? And everything points back to the thing, right? There's another, and you can look at the opposite too. Let's say it's Scorpio. Here's something else that's really trippy. These opposite things I was saying before. Remember we were looking at opposites?
Yeah.
So from Taurus, which planet rules the 2nd and the 5th house? Mercury. Okay, so which planet is opposite Mercury? Jupiter. So what sign is opposite Taurus? Scorpio. So which planet would rule the 2nd and 5th from Scorpio? The planet? Jupiter. You understand? Gemini rules, you'll get it. It's all the opposites, all these opposites. Mercury rules the 2nd and 5th from Taurus. Opposite that. Jupiter, opposite Mercury, rules the 2nd and 5th from Scorpio. Understand? So Scorpio, Mars rules the 1st and 6th. Just like from Taurus, Venus rules the 1st and 6th. What's opposite Mercury? Venus. I'm sorry, what's opposite Venus? Mars.
Yeah.
Okay. See? 7th house, 12th house. Opposite Venus. Remember, Mars rules the 7th and 12th from Taurus. Venus rules the 7th and 12th from Scorpio. You see how this sign is a mirror reflection and opposite? It's not just one sign, it's every planet, its opposite is opposite.
Crazy.
Right? Remember how we saw Taurus rules, Saturn rules 9th and 10th from Taurus, so the pair of Sun and Moon rule it for Scorpio. Opposites. Right? So here's something interesting. From Taurus, Venus is considered to be actually an enemy. Its own ruling planet is an enemy from Taurus. Because it's first in the 6th house. Because the 6th house is a difficult planet. From Scorpio, Mars is not considered an enemy. Even though it's the same house rulership. Again, it's one of those things, Parashara doesn't tell you why, but you can speculate why. Why do you think? Why do you think Venus, as ruling the 1st and 6th house from Taurus, is a natural malefic? It's naturally difficult, but Mars ruling the 1st and 6th from Scorpio is not.
Because Mars is the defender.
And what's that have to do with the 6th house or whatever?
Because Mars does well in the 6th house because he's a defender, a fighter against the enemy.
Yeah, you can fight off it.
Good.
It's disciplined.
Good.
Yeah.
So when you put the thing that is, Mars does well in the 6th, like Liliana said, because the 6th house is about difficulty, effort, stress, hard work. Now, Taurus is good at hard work, but sometimes, like I said, it's because they just lack the courage to change. And we get overcome by neglect and laziness in the 6th house. If we're not willing to get in there and fight and destroy what's making us weak in the 6th house. Because 6th house is where things accumulate, we get sick, we get weak, and we can be overcome by those weaknesses and enemies.
Yeah.
Mars in the 6th, or ruling the 6th, or related to the 6th house, doesn't let that stuff fly very long at all. He's ready. Got some problems, enemies? I'm here, I'll fight them. That's why Scorpios are fighters. Because the first lord also rules the 6th house.
So like with Taurus, like addictions, whether it be food, cigarettes, whatever it may be, would be harder to overcome.
Can be, yeah. Because there's a gentle planets in the 6th house can be overcome by the effort and the problems and the work we need to do. When you get especially Mars, which is cruel meaning ready to do difficult, cruel stuff. Saturn, which is ready to do difficult, cruel stuff. And also the Sun, which doesn't mind doing cruel stuff at all. Because he's about purification and it's actually what's called they're actually called cruel planets. It's a different classification. Then it advances those 6th house qualities. When you get gentle planets, Venus, the Moon, Jupiter, Mercury not as bad because Mercury's neutral, but when they're in the 6th house or they're ruling it, it's a little bit more difficult, a little trickier. Because they are gentle and they'll try to do like Taurus does, which is make it nice, make it nice, make it nice. Meanwhile, I'm not paying attention. I'm trying to just please everything or please everybody and not sticking up for myself or whatever. You see? So, again, you can see that difference. And I talk about this a lot, this whole way of seeing the chart in this like three-dimensional way in my book, The Ascendant, and I know they have a bunch of them. They still have 5 or 6 of them in the bookstore.
I just bought one and I thought that one was the only one left.
Oh, is it? Okay, maybe so.
Unless
I thought
they
they had a
had
few.
that one in a different spot. But
Oh,
they had
on the
one
table. There's
display.
some on the.
No, I got it from the shelf.
Oh, okay, well maybe not.
Yeah,
You can get these books from my website though afterwards. So it's very important to understand. If you get your head around this, like I get my students like, please push through the learning curve to learn this, because you're going to start every reading with so much more insight than just going, well, they're Cancer and Jupiter's in the third, so siblings, and just like pulling little pieces of stuff out instead of understanding like what it rules and that whole kind of pattern that every planet is from every ascendant.
So in this case scenario where Venus is in the 6th house and that could be hard, what would your advice to this person be?
So Venus isn't in the 6th house, it rules the 6th house.
Or rules in the 6th house? Okay.
Yeah, so these are the planets that
What
rule it.
would your advice be to this person?
Well, for a Taurus person, just the things I was telling you not to do. Don't do this. Stick up for yourself more. You'd be surprised at how it's quite uniform. First of all, you would see that they're in a dasha cycle and other things. There are things that are coming up. But in a general overview, a lot of what I do in a general overview of a reading is I explain these qualities of the ascendant to the person. And any energy that I see that's tangled up in some strange way or something, especially relative to what's happening now, or what or their dashas, I'm going to see certain themes that are really popping out at the moment. Otherwise, they wouldn't be getting the reading. I also see why they're getting the reading because of all of that stuff. I say, oh yeah, well, this is a chart of the moment, so this isn't a good example. But if someone has planets in Scorpio or let's say whatever, and they're a Taurus, I know they're getting the reading because they just had Saturn going through their 7th house. I already know I'm going to be talking about stress with the partner or whatever's going on. So I already know, so I got to focus on those things. But in a general sense, a lot of the things that I say about each ascendant in an introductory or opening way is quite uniform. I know that they have these tendencies that I'm saying to you all. And again, every sign has that nature, has some quality like that. So there's a lot of methods and a lot of things that you can say to help a person, but one of the most important is just hearing it and knowing it. Because most people don't know. They have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. And again, people always say, well, what do I do? Or what could you say? First of all, welcome to being awakened to it. Because before you were totally didn't even know what was going on. So that's a big thing. It's a big thing to, first of all, be able to see it and be able to explain it to them in a way that's also empowering, where they understand and they don't feel bad or stupid or wrong by it, and validate it, and talk about the good part of it. Because it's not like I said, half of what I said was how great they are at it. Right? We tend to hear the negative part. And I have to say, well, wait a minute, I didn't just say it was negative. I said you're the master at being able to compromise and please your partner and do those things, and you're great at that. You're great at that. They only see the negative, so being able to talk about it clearly and with objectivity, with dispassion and in an empowering way is a great gift, because they don't even know me and I'm telling them it's like universal wisdom is explaining something to them because they didn't know.